Hi there, and welcome back to another edition of ScaleUp Radio, the podcast inspired by the entrepreneurial scale-up system and designed to make navigating our scale-up journeys that little bit easier by learning from others' experiences. I'm Kevin Brent, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Rob Spence, the founder of Paragon Sales Solutions. And Rob started his business in 2018 with just £300 and no business plan, and he's grown it to 12 employees with 2 office spaces in just 6.5 years. And we'll discuss the challenges that he faced, the lessons he learned, and his future plans for empowering his team and focusing on consulting, writing, and podcasting. And make sure you don't miss any future episodes by subscribing to ScaleUp Radio wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. And you can also nominate a guest for ScaleUp Radio if you know someone with an interesting scale-up story like Rob's. And you can find out how in the show notes below. So for now, continue listening on for the full story from Rob. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm delighted today to be joined by Rob Spence, who is the founder of Paragon Sales. So, Rob, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
No, thank you for having me. We've had this booked in the diary for quite some time now. I've been really excited for it. So thank you for having me on. Yeah, excellent. Likewise, yes, great to finally manage to get us together. So there is a clue in the name of the business, but tell us about Paragon Sales and what it's all about. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, look, my whole background, I'm a massive sales nerd. You know, I'm a big believer in sales. Yeah, every business needs sales to scale up, you know, to kind of pay me old phrase a little bit. And where we position ourselves as a business, as an agency, is we offer a variety of solutions and services that help people to make more sales. So I myself do a lot of sales training and consultancy with businesses. So I'll go in and look at the processes, look at the sales skills and everything else and work on those of individuals. We've got a telemarketing team who actually pick up the phone and make telesales and telemarketing calls on behalf of our clients. We've got a digital marketing team who do all the fancy creative stuff that the young kids love these days. And I'm going to kind of, take myself out of the young kids these days, but the TikToks, the Instagrams, the content marketing and so on, and a variety of other things. For us, we just want to see the people we work with just see that increase in their sales, their leads, their inquiries, their bookings, and we just do it in a fun manner.
Very good. So, what sort of stage have you got the business to? Where are you in your scale-up journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, we've scaled dramatically quick, dare I say, over the past 6.5 years. We started in 2018. We're now up to a team of 12 team members.
Right.
We've got office space in the sunny Leicestershire countryside. I'll say sunny now, but obviously by the time it comes out, who knows? It could be grey and hurricanes. I don't know. But yeah, so we've got offices. We're just taking over secondary office space as well. So we're going to have 2 offices very soon. So we've scaled, dramatically fast.
So what sort of challenges has that brought you?
I think, I mean, look, I'm an open book. There's been a variety of challenges. When I started the business, there was never a business plan and never a sort of a roadmap, dare I say, look, this is what's going to happen. It was all thrown together. It was I'll use a term, a drunken whim, dare I say, Kevin, to be honest. So obviously the challenge is we're just all around trying to understand what growth looks like, what employees and growing a team looks like, and how that should be. Obviously with growth comes weirdly financial challenges. We've been very fortunate in the fact that I've never had to take on any loans or investments. So everything that we've done has come from pound for pound profit back into the business. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely.
However, obviously that, as you will know, will sometimes slow down growth. It will sometimes have those hesitant moments on growth. And I think as well, just the biggest challenge, maybe challenge is the wrong word, but I think the most fun I've had through the scale-up is my self-development and my development as a leader and development as a motivational person within the business. So they're the kind of main things we've had to face, really.
Interesting. So we'll probably drill in more detail, but just maybe just quickly, when you say your development, how have you changed? How have you had to change?
Well, when I started the business, I was a young whippersnapper. I think I was 20. How old would I think I was like 27, give or take. I was a sales and marketing manager for what eventually became a corporate. And, I'd read every book I could get my hands on about business, every autobiography, every biography, every how-to book. And, always being entrepreneurial, I thought I knew what I was doing. And day one of business, oh my gosh, it's a steep learning curve, isn't it? I don't think any education, whether that's an academic education or, self-taught, whatever, can never truly get you prepared for what business life is really like. And, like I say, that's then had those challenges of learning what to do in a business situation, how to handle team, how to handle conflict at times, both with sometimes suppliers, sometimes clients, sometimes team members. And conflict sounds like a strong word. We don't go toe to toe every day. It's normally just every Tuesday we do that. But, we're going through those motions there. So, and I think for me, if you look, just that development of how I handle all those situations and everything else in between, that's been the biggest change in myself, I'd say.
All right, brilliant. Well, we might drill down into a little bit more of that in a minute. So you've got a number of different arms of the business, so different ways of generating revenue and profit. So you've got the consulting bit, telesales, and digital marketing. I caught there. So what is the mix like in terms of the percentage of sales for each of those three areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say our biggest growth, our biggest driver, I should say, is our telemarketing and our telesales. We label up in a variety of ways depending on who we're dealing with. Sometimes it's appointment setting, lead generation, but really it's just telemarketing. But I'd say in terms of our revenue, that probably drives anywhere between 70 to 75% of our revenue, give or take. Actually, I'd probably say 70, with then around probably 20% coming from our digital arm. So the social media, the websites, the SEO, that kind of thing. And then probably actually 10% really comes from the training and consultancy that I deliver, really.
Okay, brilliant. And, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, what separates you and how have you managed to succeed, given that probably most business owners out there are getting multiple emails every week, if not every day, from people saying, we can generate your leads and answer all of your prayers from a sales perspective. So what makes you different?
Yeah, you're not wrong. And look, full transparency, I get probably 5 of them myself per day, so I'm no exclusion. So I've developed a good reputation over the years of being a great sales leader in the sales space. So, and we can talk about this later, I've authored books on sales. I deliver a lot of online sales training, coaching as well to clients all over the globe. And so I don't like to put myself as the USP, but I think because of my ethos, my theories on sales, that's then led to actually a proven track record of what we can deliver, what we can do, and that's where we've really grown our business. Now, weirdly, ironically, we've never really turned on the sales button for ourselves as of yet. 6.5 years in, we've only just promoted an individual into a sort of a head of sales position who's going to take on a lot of our outbound activities and so on and so forth. Our business has grown from inbound, and a lot of that has been authority on me and the reputation that I have. So I've circled around your question. So I guess to answer your question, we understand the sales process. We understand what it takes to generate good, solid, qualified leads. And I think because we don't just hit and hope with our lead generation activities, we're not on Tinder just swiping right, constantly trying to find the best match. We set up processes, we find the best people to connect, and we make it happen.
Okay. And do you go as far as guaranteeing number of leads, or how does your model work?
Yeah, it's always a tough one. We try and we do sometimes, is the honest answer. We do sometimes. As what I say to all my clients, it's very hard to guarantee leads. Some days we can generate dozens of leads in a day. Other days you can go for a quiet patch of anything else. Some of our bigger clients will put into our terms some form of guarantee of some way or another. But what we do guarantee is good hard work, solid work, and sort of a bit of what we deliver isn't always just the lead itself. It's the consultation, the market research, and everything else, So that's where we kind of position ourselves, really.
All right, good. And I guess, since you started 6.5 years ago or so, I guess there's probably quite a lot's changed in your world, isn't it? In your space?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember setting up the business, it was 2018. I think it was March 2018. I think I sat down in the corner of my bedroom on an old desk on an old iMac. And I think a month or two later, this scary term GDPR came out. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, that's me out of business straight away. We're not allowed to do anything. And we've all rode that GDPR cycle. So we've been through that. Obviously, we've faced the big C word, COVID and everything else. And, I think if we look at the telemarketing, the lead generation, because it is more of an outsourced sales function, and it's quite, dare I say, an old school style of lead generation, nothing's really changed. And if anything, we're bucking the trend, because you yourself, like you say, you will get dozens of emails per day, dozens of automated LinkedIn messages per day. But the one thing that still rings true and distracts people properly as a marketing tool is the telephone. If the phone rings, you're going to want to answer it. And even if you do have that conversation, it's a genuine conversation. But I'd say the biggest change that I've recognized is within the digital marketing and the content marketing space. When I started the business, I was managing a lot of my clients' social media platforms and generating content. And the way that happens now is completely different to how it was those 6.5 years ago. The big driver back then was Twitter. Weirdly enough, there was a big market space on Twitter, and TikTok wasn't a thing, and obviously Instagram Reels. We could, there's so many changes. But I'll be honest, that's what I love. I love the fact that every day is a learning day, every day is different, and all we're doing is trying to find solutions to the problems that are put in front of us.
Right, and how do you see things changing over the next few years?
I think we are going to start seeing more of a personalized model. I think we're going to ride this little wave of automation and AI, which is obviously naturally in the forefront of everyone's mind right now. And I think we're going to kind of go full circle and cycle and realize that actually that personal touch is what's important in business. The adage is, I can chuck you left, right, and center. People buy from people. We buy from people that know, like, and trust and everything like that. But I think that is something we will recognize that we lose quite dramatically with, like, say, AI, automations, and mass marketed emails and everything else. So I think the big trend we're going to see is that personalization, both from the top of the companies and the marketing machines in companies, but the employees as well. If I divert slightly onto content, the best content you see in the marketing space right now is employee-led content. It's not the fancy videographer choreographed video and advert that a marketing machine will put out. It's the team members making a silly TikTok, isn't it? They're the ones that get the views and so on. So I think personalization is going to be critical over the next 18 months, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's interesting how things go in cycles, essentially, because really, at the end of it, I suppose, with marketing, we're trying to get more than our fair share of voice, aren't we? That's what we need to try and do. We've got to somehow or other stand out from the crowd in some way. Yep, you're right.
No, I'm all okay. Sorry, the usual, I'm busy, but someone's still going to come in anyway, has happened. So don't worry, we're all okay. They've gone again now. They're okay.
Okay. Yeah, so it's around trying to stand out and get more than our fair share of voice. So I guess, even if we just go back to lumpy mail, going to email because it's automated, and we quickly get on the bandwagon and think, we can do a lot more than we used to be able to do, and all of that sort of thing. And then you find that everybody's gone that way and nobody's doing direct mail anymore. So if you want to stand out, send a bit of direct mail.
Absolutely. And I'm a massive advocate for direct mail. It's something I put forward to all my clients all day, every day. If I always think, the analogy I always use, if you're trying to sell on a busy shop front and every other shop front is painted blue, you're just going to blend in. There's nothing that differentiates you. You've got to paint yourself red. You've got to be the one that does things differently, and not be afraid as well. And this is something that people forget about. If you look back at the old psychologies around advertising and marketing, it's all about touch points and and all these kind of different locations of seeing brand, seeing message. And if you look at a lot of people's sales strategies now, they go, I sent them an email, they never came back to me, so I'm going to leave it. Well, actually, you need to give yourself a list. You need to call them. You need to email them. You need to send them something direct in the mail. You need to connect with them on LinkedIn. that individual needs to see you over a number of period of times until they think, actually, I know you, I like you, I trust you, you piqued my interest. Let's now talk, And I think that comes back to that personalization, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's no substitute for the personalization and the consistency, and we're all after, the instant magic bullet, aren't we? That's going to suddenly give us all these sales. But at the end of the day, that doesn't exist. If it existed, then it would just be copied anyway straight away. So then everybody would be doing it. So we've got to come back and just do the right stuff well, consistently, haven't we?
Absolutely. I think if you truly want the sale, if you truly want the business, you've got to prove it. No one wants to deal with the person that sent 20,000 emails who has no idea what you do and the pain points you face. It's all about that direct connection, I'd say.
All right. So what does your ideal customer look like? Is it a small and medium-sized business? Is it what's it look like?
Once again, this is so hard for us to answer because we have got such an array of a crazy portfolio of clients. We've got clients who are worth billions and billions of pounds, some based over in the Middle East, some based down south in the UK. We've got some in America, these massive corporations who turn over so much money. I've also got clients like the local electrician who just wants some pat testing work. It's a lifestyle business for him, and he just needs a couple of leads per month, nothing too strenuous, but it keeps him out of mischief and keeps his wife happy and everything else in between. So in terms of sector, once again, we've worked with them all. We've worked with SaaS companies, we've worked with electricians, health and safety consultants. We're running a campaign for gym soft, campaigns for little, like the little silica gel kind of packets that you put in packaging. We're working with a company that manufactured them and everything else in between. So for us, we want to deal with companies that want more sales, so I guess your prime audience, really, those that want to scale. Because of the way we work, we've just got a solution or a select choice of solutions that we can then help them with. And for us, that first part of the journey is, let's sit down. What do you want to achieve? Do you only want 5 or 10 leads a month? That we've got something to support you on that. If you've got a 20 strong sales team who you need booking appointments in for, and they need 5 a day, we can do that as well. It's all about understanding for us what the client wants. We can put together a process that then supports them in their growth.
Brilliant. So let's be covered a little bit, but what got you started back in 2018? What this drunken moment I think you described it as? But what?
It was a bottle of port, Kevin. To be honest, it was a bottle of port. Stay away from it. Strong, but I, like many people, I'd fallen into sales. My father was a sales manager, so I always kind of looked up to him. Weirdly, I went through a period, especially sort of in my early 20s, where I thought I wasn't good enough for sales. I think it was like the pressure that I was a bit scared of, a bit worried about it, and so on. And I had a short career in the police, in Leicestershire Police. I then, through a bit of retail, but I kind of fell into warehousing to start off with, got operation manager job, and the business I was working for at the time said, look, we need a salesperson. The company, the products. Do you want to give it a go? And I thought, well, okay, yeah, I'll try it out. And I loved it. I hit the ground running, and I started to, because I was good at it, I didn't want to kind of just rest and go, well, I'm good at sales, that's it. I started to study sales because it's something that a lot of people don't think about. They just go, I'm good at sales, this is what I'm going to do. I read every book I could get my hands on about sales. I attended every seminar, webinar. I partnered with mentors, both within the business and outside of the business, to learn what makes a good salesperson. We soon found out that our sales in Leicester were outperforming our other 8 depots. Well, we were seeing growth year on year of around 40, 50%. The other depots in the company, or the other offices, were generating about 3 or 4% growth. Yeah. They then looked at me and they realized that my performance was strong, but also I was putting into place processes with my Leicester team to help boost those sales. So my job changed into a national sales and marketing manager. So I looked after all the other offices, started to implement those changes for those other depots and those other offices. And it got to a stage where I'd kind of taken the role as far as I could. The company got taken over by one corporate that then a year later got took over by another corporate. So things became very spreadsheety. So it became very, very that kind of corporate aura that you get with these kind of companies. And I'd just authored a book at the time. This was 2017 called Relationship Selling, and that did far better than what I thought it would. I thought my mum would buy a copy and that'd be it. Turns out she bought hundreds of the thing and it went viral. No, she didn't really, but it went viral and had quite a few requests from people for help and support with their sales, their marketing. And I've always been quite entrepreneurial. I've always wanted to own a business. I always used to look up to business owners and go, I'd love to be a business owner. But I didn't know what the business would be. Like, I never knew what it could be. And I thought, you know what, I'm kind of young enough and dumb enough to start this. And that was it. I remember, I'm not an advocate for drink or alcohol. We should all drink responsibly, of course.
Of course.
I don't want to get your podcast banned, Kevin, but I was, I remember, sipping on a glass of port, and I was talking to my partner at the time. I was like, look, I need to do this. I need to do this. I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't take the role any further. The next kind of step was either to go into the corporate arm, which, like I said, I just wasn't built for, or to wait for the sales director role to come up in the umbrella that we were under. And he was, very comfortable and so on. And I just did it. I remember penning out my resignation. I had a rough idea as to what the business would look like, but I just handed in the resignation and dealt with the rest after.
Excellent. So tell us about where you went from there. You're now on your Tods, no customers. Where did you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, look, you said to me off air, we want the listeners to learn, what to do and what not to do. And I did everything wrong, really. I think it helped, and I'll come on to why. But I was quite clever with what I did. I gave them a 3-month notice period just to allow myself the chance to build up the business, build up the brand, build up the identity, build up the customer base, the client base, and everything else. And I set to work doing that. Now, when I say I did things wrong, I think I alluded to earlier, there was no business plan. I didn't sit down and write, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it. I had no money. I'd literally put, I think it was £300 into a business bank account, to keep that separate. And I had 1 month's savings to last me 1 month. And that was I was the main breadwinner. That was to cover, the mortgage, the gas, the water, the electric, the TV, everything. Yeah. So, like I say, that's what, to some degree, I shouldn't have done that, but I'll explain why I think it worked. And it just all fell into place. I'd lined up some clients to work with before I started. Luckily, I was very fortunate. My employer wanted to keep me even just to offer some marketing support, especially with their social media. So I obtained them on a small retainer fee. And yeah, I'm sure it was either the 1st or the 3rd of March, I believe. And, I remember sitting down the corner of my bedroom. It was on an old desk I had just on my old iMac. I'd set up a little landline phone and that was it. And I just started working, started marketing, started pushing. And when I talk about the things that I've learned and so on, and then you might have witnessed the same. I speak to so many people who want to start up a business, want to have a business, but they cling on to the safety net of employment or finance or whatever. And I always put our success down to the fact that I had to work. If I didn't work, I would starve. My children would starve. I'd lose my house, And so it was, although doing wrong, I was living off pure adrenaline and port, obviously, for the first week or two, and probably, dare I say, the first year. I think if I'd have taken on a part-time job or just worked part-time, I wouldn't have scaled the business. I think if I'd have taken on some form of investment or loan, I wouldn't have been as hungry to think, I need these clients, I need the money. And I think it was that hunger that really allowed us to propel and prosper.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that. It's essentially not giving ourselves the excuse of a safety blanket if it fails. Actually, yeah. But equally, it's scary, which is why not everybody will set themselves up as an entrepreneur and start a business. But yeah, good. And then So then you obviously got some clients. You obviously had some success, and at that point, by the sounds of it, it was just you. Was it essentially you?
Absolutely, yeah.
So how did you transition? Because one of the toughest stages I think that a lot of early stage businesses find is especially if they're starting up on their own and they're bootstrapping, is getting to the point where they can actually get some employees and get to that point where you've got maybe a team of four or five people, because we often sort of think, oh yeah, maybe I could do with them some extra help. So we get somebody and then that doesn't work out properly and we're back to ourselves and on our own. And it's a difficult transition to make, isn't it? So how did you address that valley of death as it's sometimes referred to?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is you can describe it that way. And once again, I think is another thing that allowed us to scale very quickly. I recognized that I needed team members or teammates. I think it was within month 2, I believe, of the business. So yeah. I'd taken on an array of clients very quickly, very dramatically. As I said, I marketed well, I networked well, I spoke to people well. And as a salesperson, if I can't grow a business, I'm probably not a good salesperson. So it was month 2, I was like, right, I need someone here. I was very fortunate. A friend, well, a kind of family friend, dare I say, had done some telemarketing work before, so she knew the telemarketing industry well. She only wanted part-time. She'd just had her second child. No big deal. She only had her first child at the time, thinking about it. Just slowly thinking about getting back into work. And it was just a conversation we had, months before. And so I took the leap, and I still remember, it was quite a cute situation. She'd come round, she only started, I think it was like 8 hours a week or something. So she'd come around on Tuesday. She'd bring her MacBook. She'd sit on my desk in my bedroom, and I'd move my iMac to my little bedside table. And so I'd be sat on the corner of my bed, typing away, making my calls that I needed to make. She'd be working in the corner. It was quite a cute little setup. And I remember, it got to the last working day of that month, the first month. And she goes, Robert, am I going to get paid today? I was like, oh gosh, yeah, you probably should. So I'm there doing what every, entrepreneur does, just Googling, how do I pay staff? And I'm, trying to download, look on the HMRC, look at what software they recommend and so on. And I remember, it was a big faff in the end, but it was, a massive leap of faith and a leap of faith that only kind of magnified when we then needed to take on team member number 2. So Abby joined us within month 2, who was the first team member. Her friend Emily came on board probably 6 months later, dare I say. So it becomes, a steamroll effect. But once again, I think the pressure of having someone else to look after, once again, drove me. Because if you think of how hungry and sort of full of desire I was when it was just me by myself, I then had someone else to pay and someone else to look after. Emily came along, and then, oh my gosh, I've now got to look after you as well. So, it just kept pushing for that hunger and desire, really. But absolutely, it's a very terrifying thought, but actually the most liberating as well.
Right. And then whether you back this up from your experience, but we get to that point of 4 or 5, and that's a really good tight knit team then at that point, isn't it? We've got enough of us that we that we can do some meaningful things. We've got a little bit of fail safe if one of us isn't well or something like that, but it's not too big that it's difficult to keep control. It's easy to communicate, isn't it? But then as we get then towards where you are now, where you've got 12 employees, things change a little bit. It's harder to keep control, isn't it? Of got 10 or 12 people where you've got to manage that communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this comes back to my learning journey, I think, that I mentioned earlier. I think I picked up some bad habits from the leaders that had looked after me in my employment. Picked up some good ones as well, but some bad ones also. And I've learned now. I always knew the importance of team, but I think I sometimes got a bit too, I don't know. I think so at times I've rushed the recruitment process, taking on the wrong people for the wrong roles. and looked for short-term fixes to actually some things that were like more longer-term problems. So,
Right.
there's been little periods of the business where I've left recruitment in the hands of other people in the team, and that's then come back and let us down the line, and and so on. So we're very fortunate, to speak openly for what we do. We don't need an office. We can work anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
But when we had to kind of trial that to some degree over the years, obviously COVID forced our hand a little bit for a while, and so on. It's very hard, in my opinion, to manage a team from afar. And I think there's a lot of pressure put on leaders, business owners, managers, when they're trying to manage a team from afar. I know there's tech that is supposed to help and support that, but it's not personal. Once again, it comes down to that lack of personality. So, I love the fact that I get to come into the office every day. I get to see my team, meet my team. I get to talk to them. I understand what drives them. I understand what's going on in their personal lives. Sometimes too much, actually, but I get to know what's going on in their personal lives and understand what's happening at home and so on. That is backed up by, we're very strict on having monthly one-to-ones, okay, where we really encourage a two-way conversation. I give the floor to the employee first, or the team member first, to understand once again where they're at. Are they happy? Are they not happy? What do they need? What training do they need? What's the next step in their career? It allows me the chance as well to be vocal and communicate sometimes it could be concerns, sometimes it could be areas for growth, sometimes it could be praise, but it becomes a nice open two-way communication. And that has once again helped us to really understand where the team's at, where the team will be in the next sort of 2 to 3 months, and also where it'll be in 12 months as well.
Very good. So what else have you would you, looking back on it, would you say are key lessons learned in that 6 years that you've?
Yeah, I think the two main ones for me, really, when I think back to it, we've just spoken about a team. Like I say, having the right team in the right place is a given. My biggest advice to any business owner, entrepreneur is don't rush that recruitment process. Don't just get anyone in just for the sake of getting them in. The job market's changed dramatically over absolutely the last 10 years, but probably more so in the last 2 years. It's got to become a two-way relationship. I know there's a lot of HR people out there that's going to be grimacing, go, oh no, it's not a relationship. Oh no, it's not family. But unfortunately it is. You've got to be, especially for small business, you've got to be all driven for the same outcome and the same output.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest mistakes I made when I set the business up was not really knowing our worth and not understanding what to price and what to charge. I remember.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, I remember. We understand it now. We definitely understand it now. We know where we need to be. But I remember especially when Abby first came on, I didn't understand. Weirdly, I don't know why. I still to this day don't understand why I did it. But I felt cheeky to add a markup on the wages that I was paying Abby, if that makes sense. So my client,
right? Yeah.
So my client at the time, one of her first clients, were only paying effectively for the wages that I was paying Abby per hour. So my client was laughing all the way to the bank. They were like, "This is a great deal."
Yeah.
And I, like I say, I just didn't dare. I don't know why. To this day, I don't know why. I just felt it was rude. I felt it was unethical. I don't know. Now, obviously, like I say, we understand the intentions of margins, and we've kind of turned our services into products because it becomes an easier sell to some degree. So I think, again, any advice to any business owners, entrepreneurs, especially going through that scale-up phase, is know your worth and understand what your price point should be, and don't ever undersell yourself just to meet the expectations of a client, really.
Yeah, the pricing is absolutely key, and certainly in those early stages, we've seen it a lot where it's one of the reasons why for that first value of death, because we carry on charging in the way that we charged when we were just in our back bedroom doing it ourselves, and whether we're only charging the same rate or whether we are charging a markup, but often that markup just isn't enough when we take into account that actually let's have a look at, if we had 4 or 5 employees, how would we have to charge for our services in order to support those employees, with the right sort of volume of work and everything. But it's not the same as if we're just working out of our back bedroom, no other overheads essentially to work on. So you mentioned very quickly there something about turning your services into products. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of service-based, companies out there, and we are a service-based business in the grand scheme of things. And I read a book once, and every time I say I've read a book, I can never remember which one it was. I will figure it out. You're probably the second we hang up this podcast. But from a sales point of view and from a marketing point of view, we've tried to really consider ourselves as products more so than those services. How do you personify that? It's a very tough one. We look at two things. We look at what our product costs per day. We look at what our product should be worth per day. So if we let's look at our telemarketing for argument's sake. So we charge our telemarketing by the day, okay? And our pricing structure is very clear and simple. The more you invest with us, the more cost effective that singular day rate unit becomes.
Okay. Yeah.
So what we look at, of course, is now understanding how much one team member actually costs us. And actually we look beyond wages, we look at taxes, we look at lighting, we look at electrics, everything that employee will do. We also, of course, look at our profit margins and how that's going to work out. And we look at the deliverables of what that product then gives the individual on the back end of things. So once again, it's something that I've just tried to, it's more maybe of a mindset shift that's allowed us to grow a little bit more in doing so than actually changing the way in which we work. And I think sometimes when we're messaging that in our sales conversations and our marketing conversations, it also allows the prospect or the potential customer to understand what they're getting from that product outcome as well.
Yeah, very good, very good. All right, so what's next? What does the future hold?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a typical Rob Spence fashion. There's still no business plan. There's a kind of business plan. There's a kind of growth map. We know where we want to be. We want to keep doing what we're doing now, but better. We've gone through a big exercise internally looking at leadership roles and allowing me to fully get off the tools is the term that I use a lot of, and you alluded to it earlier when you were talking about taking on team members. That was probably one of the best things that I've ever done, coming off the tools. There's still a lot that I still do internally where I'm quite hands-on, and I want to stop that, and I want to empower my team to give them the ambition, the respect, and the desire to take on elements. So we've recognized key leadership people within the business. What that will then do is allow me to do more of what I love, which is the consultancy, the sales training. As we mentioned off camera, I've got a couple of podcast projects that I work on. I'm a big lover of writing books. I've authored 3 books. I want to write more. So I think as well, and once again, I'm sure that there's plenty of people you've spoken to in the same situation. I sometimes feel that I hold the business back.
Right.
And I think every entrepreneur, every business owner should do what they can to down the tools and look at the business as a business. My biggest, saying is to some of the teams sometimes is you look at Richard Branson. I don't think Richard Branson could fly a plane in his life, but he knows how to run, an airline, and that's where we need to be, and that's where we need to get to.
Yeah, very good, excellent. And it is, we think, one of the real reasons why not many businesses actually scale beyond the 10 or 12 people is that we get in the way. Yeah, and we fail to manage to essentially drive the performance of the business, the results of the business through others. We can drive it ourselves, but getting ourselves out of the way and replacing ourselves as the kind of not just the chief rainmaker, but actually a lot of other things within business. And you mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast that you've just recently taken on a head of sales, which is interesting in its own right, because obviously that's your particular expertise. That's a real skill area for you.
Yeah, absolutely. We were very fortunate to have a team member, a candidate in the business who was just, I think if you look at many businesses, there's always like a solid number 2 who just quote unquote gets it. And we were lucky to find that individual quite early who gets it. And it's quite nice to, the lad Connor, I'll give him a little shout out there. He's only 20, he's very young, but he's got a very wise head on him. very wise head, and he gets it. He's inspirational, and it's nice for me because to some degree, it's like having an apprentice, someone that I can impart that wisdom on, someone who can impart what we're doing. And I want it to be that way. I made a joke the other day to someone, considering I'm always so busy and always doing everything here, there, and everywhere. I made a joke that I'm just naturally lazy. I'd rather put things in place to allow me the time to do what I want to do. I don't think I am lazy, but full transparency, I'd rather be on the golf course than in the office every day.
No, but I think you're right. I think that's what makes a good entrepreneur. When we say that, because there must be a better way, an easier way to do this, and then we spend the rest of our lives working 8-hour weeks, trying to crack that. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And for me, I'm constantly just trying to plant seeds. The team members now are the seeds that in a year or two, they'll grow the business without me. I can go off and do whatever I need to do, or whatever, my direction will take me in. And once again, just, we've got to remember, and I think some business owners and some employers forget this. We have got the hands of people's destinies and careers in our hands. We've got to make sure they're having fun and delivering good work so that they can either, input and have a good positive input into our businesses. But if all of a sudden they decide to go elsewhere, you want to give them the best stead for that next step, and the only way you can do that is to give them the trust, give them the faith, give them the teachings and the learnings for them to go on and develop their lives.
A really nice way of looking at it. No, but good. And one of the other things as we sort of transition that stage that you're talking about is, if we're trying to deliver results through others, is what to measure, is the sort of key performance metrics, whatever KPI. So what are the key things that you look out for in the business to know that you're on track with where you're headed?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things we look at. For me, the biggest thing really is client retention and happiness. I think that's the biggest driver. I think if you look at, if you're having, especially for an agency like ours, if you've got a high turnover of clients, something's not right. Either it's the deliverables, it's the service, it's a mixture of the two, or relationship, whatever it is. Turnover of clients is a key KPI of ours. Of course, we look at leads into our business. We look at our conversion rates and everything. We look at that client turnover and client satisfaction. We do look as well into team member turnover, staff turnover as well, because once again, that's very important for us. Naturally, of course, not every team member will work out. We've had to make some tough decisions for the benefit of the business. But those that, get on well with us and we like and we appreciate and our clients appreciate, we want to make sure that we can retain that talent as well. To help with that, we've recently we put a lot of time and effort into our bonus scheme. And one of the key things that we offer in as part of our bonus is a client retention bonus and a client, client retention scheme. So if my argument is, if we're doing great work for our clients, they're not going to go elsewhere. So if they're saying, that's not me, I've not done that. That's you as an individual. So we pay quite heavily. But once again, what we've also done is listen to our staff recently, and we've allowed the chance to either take a cash incentive or, a salaried incentive, or additional paid time off to give them more time off. Because once again, we realize that not everyone is driven by money. Some people love money and they want the commission, they want this, that, and the other. Some people just want to be able to travel the world, So KPI wise, for us, the biggest driver is client retention. If we're keeping clients, we're doing a good job.
Brilliant. Good. Excellent. So what's the legacy that you want to leave? What's the end game?
Goodness, that is a very good question. I could tell you about, my desires to have a statue built of me outside, in Leicester city centre or so on. But I think I want to change the way people view sales. If I put my sales trainer hat on, I want people to realize that sales is probably, I'm going to start some fires here, probably the most important part of any business. If your top line's massive, you don't need to worry about your bottom line, in my opinion. I want to have a positive impact on the way people see sales. I want to have a positive impact on the way people do sell and the way in which people are educated on sales. For the business, I want us to have a great team, with a team who love coming to work. They love doing what they do. and they love delivering great results for their clients. And I think really they're the key things for me, I'd say.
Oh, brilliant. Good. Well, it's been fascinating. I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you, but before we do that, are there any, you mentioned a few things already, but for a small and medium-sized business, are there any specific things that they need to think about with regards to sales?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really understand your sales process and your sales cycle. Don't leave sales to chance. Sales, I think, is easier than what a lot of sales trainers want me to say, because they want to sell their courses and they want to sell this. But understand that if you take the personal approach, you're going to do 4 times better than just a mass marketed hit and hope kind of approach. Make sure you get your pricing right and understand your leads, your conversions, and your products, especially those 3 latter things: your leads into your business, your conversion rate of those leads, and the actual service deliverable. Your business will scale up tenfold.
Nice. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, Rob. So a couple of quick fire questions. You up for these?
Make it easy. Absolutely.
Right. Well, if you could go back to your younger self, Rob, what advice would you give the young Rob?
Goodness, stay off the port. No, I think enjoy the journey. I think me, like many people, have always looked for that end result instead of realizing that actually on a car journey, the actual journey is probably the most enjoyable thing. So enjoy the journey.
Yeah, that's what I'm definitely guilty of not enjoying the journey. That's absolutely spending enough time to think about enjoying the journey. Good. Remind us of your books. You mentioned relationship selling.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, cheeky plug. They're all available on Amazon and all good bookstores. There's probably a load of them sitting in an Oxfam shop somewhere. But yeah, so we've got relationship selling. That was my first book. We've got the Paragon Mindset, which I wrote at the start of setting up the business, which probably was a silly idea in itself, but it worked well. And then finally, A Month to Improve Your Sales, which is a nice, simple to read, a chapter per day. If you read that in a month and you implement what it says, you'll improve your sales within 1 month.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And although like me, it sounds like you find it difficult to recall individual books and names of authors, but any particular books that have made a big impact on you?
Yeah, absolutely. I will have a little cheeky look at my little hidden book stash behind me, but the biggest one, like many salespeople, Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People, was a massive one. I'm a big fan of the sales author called Jeffrey Gitomer. He's got a variety of books out there, but one that really stood out was The Little Red Book of Selling. And finally, I'll give you one that not many people sort of know of or think about. Now, this book is called Selling the Wheel. By the authors, I should say, Jeff Cox and Howard Stevens. And the reason I like that is I assume you've read lots of sales books over the years, Kevin, have you?
A few, yeah.
Yeah, it's all, I've done this, I've done that. If you do this, this will happen, and so on. What Selling the Wheel does is it takes, it goes back into story mode, and it talks about selling the wheel. And, if someone invents the wheel, and they look at different sales tactics, techniques, and it just becomes a great way to think about how we can once again sell our products in different methods, sometimes depending on where it is in the market and so on, but a great read.
Brilliant. Excellent. And question on technology, any particular apps or bits of tech that you use a lot that you found really useful?
Just pick up the phone.
Great.
Just pick up the phone. Look, there's a million and one that we could go into and talk about. But for me, if you truly want to do business with someone, pick up the phone to them. Have a good, deep conversation with them. And I assure you that deep conversation will generate more results than, like, say, sending 10,000 LinkedIn messages and hoping that one of them comes true.
Very good. And you mentioned Richard Branson, but anybody that's had a particular influence on you as a business leader?
Gosh, yeah, quite a few. Like I said, I tried my hardest to study every entrepreneur I could. The one that I always kind of go back to is David Ogilvy. David Ogilvy was, similar to myself, started off as a salesperson. He used to go door to door selling Argas and the range cookers and so on, and then has set up what has become the leading advertising and marketing agency pretty much in the world, and I still to this day watch a lot of his old videos. Now, bearing in mind, these are from the 70s and 80s, they still have a lot of resonance. So if you are listening to this and you want some videos to watch, check out David Ogilvy. There's some wisdom there.
Excellent. And don't think I need to ask this question, but you've already told us, what's your most successful marketing or lead generation tactic? I'm guessing he's coming back to pick up the phone.
Yeah, pick up the phone. I think, no, agreed. Yeah, picking up the phone, but personal brand, having that personal brand is key and critical for any businesses or entrepreneurs. Once again, I read a study recently that a lot of consumers want to learn a lot about the founders of businesses, and they want to see it uncut. They want to see it raw. They want to see what happens within a business. So, I would argue that no matter what business you are in, and whoever is listening to this, start to document your life, get content, post on LinkedIn daily, consider TikTok, Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, and everything else. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because people love the journey as much as they do the destination.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And always finish off with, how can people find out more about you, Rob, or reach out to you? I know you've also got a couple of podcasts yourself. So how can people find out about those, and also about Paragon Sales?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be honest, I'm the worst person to hide. I'm very visible everywhere. So if you can find me on LinkedIn under Rob Spence. It's a heavily photoshopped photo, but I still kind of look a little bit like it. I've got 2 podcasts on the go at the moment. So we've got the How I Failed in Business podcast, that's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all good podcast streaming. And I've just set up the Sales Circle, which is going to be very sales focused as a podcast, once again available on all good podcast streaming devices. Of course, just Google Paragon Sales Solutions. You'll find us, start a conversation. I'd love to have a chin wag and go from there.
Fantastic. Well, Rob Spence, thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today.
No, thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial ScaleUp System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.